We now call the meeting to order. If we could pay attention to Councilmember Lesser to introduce the invocation to be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. I would like to introduce the Reverend Richard Rounds of Love Abiding Church of God in Christ to come forward to give us the invocation.
May the blessings of God be with you as I pray. May you be encouraged and motivated and uplifted in your endeavors of what you're trying to accomplish. May you stand tall in the midst of whatever your crisis may be, that you be able to accomplish them successfully. Because with God, you can do anything, and nothing too hard for him. Father, as we pray today, we thank you again for the time as we gather together to come together as one, to reach out to our city, to reach others who may have problems or situations or whatever it may be. I pray, God, to give them insight to be able to unravel mysteries that they may not understand. Give them the ingenuity, give them the knowledge, give them the ability to be able to rise to the occasion. We need strong leaders, Lord, that's going to stand in the midst of our cities and accomplish the task in our communities. Bless them as we pray, the mayor, the city manager, all the council members, and all of those who work together, the police department and everything. Your hand of God be with him as we pray on this night, and may the riches of God be with him. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
James Earl Jones. That's right. Sorry.
There's voices that uplift the spirit, and he's got a gift. So we have two proclamations today. The first one that we'll read, is the proclamation for Economic Development Week. So if the representatives of Go Topeka can come up. And the proclamation reads, whereas Shawnee County and the city of Topeka are committed to improve citizens' quality of life by attracting, retaining, and expanding well-paying jobs and investing in our people. And whereas Topeka is committed to fostering a business-friendly climate that will attract employers, enable the country and the state to remain competitive and generate new opportunities for our citizens. And whereas the Greater Topeka Partnership serves as a resource committed to delivering local, state, and federal resources that will enhance the competitiveness of Shawnee County and the city of Topeka and contributes to the Commonwealth in economic growth and vitality. For every 100 new jobs in Shawnee County and the city of Topeka is impacted by 6.6 million annually of additional spending. Topeka's total gross domestic product grew by more than 4%, and personal income is expected to increase by 15% in the next decade. Economic developers promote the well-being and quality of life for the communities by creating, retaining, and expanding and facilitating job growth and enhanced wealth. Now, therefore, I, Michelle de la Isla, Mayor of Topeka, Kansas, do hereby proclaim the Economic Development Week. Matt, could you say a few words? And Molly?
Well, I just want to hear Reverend Rounds again. But we do appreciate this. We're actually looking forward to this. Is Tourism Week and Economic Development Week. And we just want to thank our elected leaders for being our partners in growing economic prosperity in Topeka and Shawnee County. So thank you very much.
Well, let's recognize them for all they do for our community and helping us establish better wealth for our citizens. Do you guys mind if we do? Okay. So we have a slight pause because we brought two proclamations. One of them was not the correct one. So if somebody wants to sing the Jeopardy song while we wait for that proclamation to arrive, it is complete and it's on its way. I was joking, Jen. Mike and Matt, you want to up? We're on live feed. I'm sure that you can talk.
And as soon as that proclamation shows up, I'll shut up. Today, I was spending time with a group of community leaders, and one of the things we were talking about is metrics, how we measure our success and how we measure what matters. And we were looking at 15 or 16 things like affordable housing, like poverty rates. And there was one that actually stuck out to me, and that was our Net Promoter Score. And if you looked at all of the metrics and all the things that we're looking at measuring, it seemed that every single metric tied back to this one metric, and that was our Net Promoter Score. And there's a lot of work to do in our county, in our city, on the way we promote our own community. And so it's really stayed with me. And I think after the meeting, so many people stood up and said, if there was a way to move only one metric instead of 15, we think if we move these other 14, that one would go up. So this net promoter score is really important. And then the other thing I'll mention while I have the mic, because she gave it to me, is there's been a term that we've been using recently, and it started off as economic equity, but it's actually been inclusive prosperity. And one of the things that I would say economic development organizations haven't really been focused on in our past is how do we rise up from an economic standpoint, those that are most in need. And so I found myself saying recently that we are only as healthy as our most sick neighborhood. And so one of the things that we are really focused on right now is how do we move forward with this term of economic equity or inclusive prosperity. So it's something that's really heavy on our hearts right now. And we want to put strategy to what we're feeling in here and really try to drive home creating economic prosperity for everyone. And that's the equity in economic prosperity. So those are the two things that are on my mind right now. I hope that proclamation comes in because I think Mayor D could sing.
I've done that too much. Well, I think that what we'll do is that we'll go ahead and we have two individuals signed up for public comment, and that way we go and we do that. And if the council is okay with that, we will then return to the proclamation. We proceed with the roll call.
Mayor De La Isla. Here. Council members Hiller. Clear.
Here.
Ortiz. Here. Emerson.
Here.
Padilla.
Here.
Jensen.
Present.
Mays.
Here.
Cohen. And Lester.
Here.
We now proceed with the first portion of the public comment. The first person signed up to speak is Mr. Willard Steinfeld.
Thank you. May it please, Madam Mayor De La Isla, may it please the City Council. I have 3 issues to address. I'm going to try to get through it as fast as I can. I made a mistake, and I'd like to explain that mistake. But I would first like to start out by saying, as far as public comment is concerned, to have it before or after the meeting. I mean, you spoke about this at a previous council meeting. I think if you listen to the citizens of Topeka, they may very well tell you which they prefer, because I spoke at the end of the last meeting, and this time I'm speaking first. So I think over a period of time, people will let you know what they prefer. The second issue has to do with dog licensing. I know that maybe you will remember the little dachshund Wolf that died before his next licensing was due, and I had paid in advance, and I did receive your $8 check. So, but I have some really interesting and kind of sad information about pet data, which I'd like to cover. And the last issue has to do with a compliment to a councilwoman that I have noticed through the years of her quality work, and I would like to compliment her on that. Basically, what happened with pet data is I called them several times today, and one of the three people that I spoke to knew about how the policy was changed, but two of the other people reported to me those painful words that, "I'm sorry, Willard, we don't have a method for refunding your $8. The mistake I made last session was that I accepted $10 from a stranger. As far as I was concerned, I didn't know who he was, and I didn't really want the $10, and I was wrong in taking the $10, and I returned the $10. And I did receive the $8, which I really wanted to accomplish, which was one of two things: to change the policy whereby if a dog or a pet dies the year before they are licensed, and then the owner has already paid for the next year, that they can get a refund. And pet data is not there yet. I call it a sectional disconnect, that they just aren't there. I have only a minute left, so my specific request to the council is that an addition to this form be made to include on this that if your pet dies before, their license up, then you can apply for a refund. I think that would be positive. My compliment is to the outstanding work that through the years I have noticed that Councilwoman Sylvia Ortiz has done for the city of Topeka and for her constituents. I hope that eventually some of those gravel roads will be repaired. Progress is a tree of slow growth, and I just want you to know that you are appreciated. And there's an old Chinese proverb that goes, perhaps at times the best man for the job is a woman. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Yes, Councilwoman Ortiz.
I think I'd like to extend his time. I think he has more to say. Willard, did you need more time? You do? Come on back. Come on. That's right, honey. Come on. I didn't pay him either. I'd like to extend his time for another 2 minutes.
Second.
Okay.
Well, my wife
Wait, hold on. Let us vote for.
So we now proceed with the voting for the extension of 2 minutes for Mr. Willard. First, Mr. Steinkuhler.
I get 2 more minutes. Okay. Thank you.
Wait a second.
Thank you. My wife and I.
Yes.
8 having voting yes, Mr. Willard Steinkuhler, you can proceed.
My wife and I had the privilege of working elections, so we controlled the books and the ballots, who got the ballots in, and I worked on the east side, and for many years I followed your lead and the things that you voted for, which I was in favor of, and we appreciate your time. As I mentioned previously, diversity seems to be a genius of democracy, and your diversity is beautiful and welcomed and valuable, because those gravel roads should be repaired, because we all put into a community bank that supports us for what we want to do. And rather than going back on any of the others, there we go. I don't know what else to say except a very sincere thank you.
Yes, Councilwoman Ortiz.
I just want to say thank you to Mr. Willard. I'm kind of liking this public. It's kind of growing with me. I just want to, but in all sincerity, I just wanted to thank him.
Second person signed up to speak is Mr. Richard Lear.
I don't know that I can be that pleasant, but I want to thank Mr. Emerson for going to the code compliance meetings, and he's obviously involved in that part of our city. In the future, you're going to vote, I believe, on a ordinance that allows registration of occupied and unoccupied properties. In 1935, that's how Hitler started in on the Jews. And oppressive governments create lists, registrations. We know political parties do the same. They have hit lists. I have 10 code compliance citations here, and I probably don't have time to read them, but none of them are a violation. And these are different kind of people across the city, and they just happen to stumble into my path. A spare tire on a car became an inoperable vehicle. An 83-year woman gets a forsythia bush cut down by her son. It, on the driveway, becomes a brush pile. Now, I've been here 72 years. I know a brush pile goes out back where the rats and the rabbits are. Code compliance has done a good job, but we got new people. They don't have any experience. I don't know if that person came from New Jersey or New York, had no idea what a brush pile was. My neighbor trimmed his landlord's yard, took all the limbs and stuff and put them on the cement slab. Turned out to be a brush pile. It was just waiting on trash day. I had a washer and a dryer on a trailer, waiting on the appliance shop. Code compliance officer drives by and says, appliances. Well, that word is in the code, so I get a citation. You spend $45,000 a year mailing these things. I've got $1,000 worth of them right here. They're a waste of the taxpayers' money. Some of your constituents, you mentioned what you do that's good for business. Well, one of your business people in town said just a bunch of Gestapo Nazis. One landlord said he doesn't know where these people are from, but they're not from Kansas. Obviously, he hasn't talked to the business owner. The lady at the title company said, makes you wonder if you want to own property in Topeka. There was a man in an administrative hearing, he asked me, don't you think their behavior is egregious? And I thought, wow, that's good. He gets an A for the use of the English language. There was a landlord that you shut down his garage, claimed he was running a business. He owns about 100 properties in that neighborhood. So what your code compliance people did was make it more difficult for him to keep up his properties. And he wasn't running a business, although he's involved in business. And the test would be, once the garage closed, the rental properties are still there. He's still fixing them. So he wasn't running a business out of his garage, but you shut him down. I
still
could
have
use
a minute.
couple more minutes.
You still have a minute, sir.
There's a bunch of 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guys running an NIA in Central Topeka. They've got 2 dumpsters. Every Saturday, there's a line of cars there. Those guys are doing a service. I heard this through the grapevine, that now they're looking for people to tell them what zip code they came from, and people come from all over town, and I have properties all over town. I've got 30. I'm 72 years old, I work 7 days a week, and I enjoyed weekends, and then I bought a retail business that operated 365 days a year, lost my weekends. Then during that time, I became a landlord. No weekends. But about 3 years ago, I started enjoying my weekends again. Can you imagine why? Code compliance officers don't work on weekends. So I have 2 more days of peace that I might get something done that they're going to find to write up on Monday. So anyhow, I recommend that you vote against registering properties. If you read
Sir,
it,
do you need additional time?
yeah,
Would
I'd
you-
take a couple of minutes.
1 or 2 minutes?
2 minutes.
So moved, 2 minutes.
We have a motion, we have a second. We now proceed with the voting.
We have 7 yes.
7 having voting yes, the motion passes. Sir, you have 2 more minutes.
Okay, thanks. Anyhow, we talked about the volunteers, the dumpsters. the garage. Anyhow, I was going to talk about that ordinance. What it actually says to me, I wrote it. Registration would be required for occupied or unoccupied buildings that meet the following criteria. Failure to register a neglected property once notified would result in a fine. Failure to comply with a statement of intent within the prescribed time period would result in a fine. Time periods are an issue for me. You give me a 10-day notice from code compliance, Kansas statutes require me to give my tenant a 1430. So you want me to fix it in 10 days, I have no right to go on their property, and the state law requires me to give them 14 days to do it. You send me a notice to do something within 60 days. Now, most of the time when I deal with officers, they know me, I get along with them, I just got an extra 60 days to do some siding on a house. So it's not that they're uncooperative. It's just that when push comes to shove, there's a lot of authority. You can put people in jail. You can do whatever you want. You don't need to start a registration list that gives one man power to say that he does not like something, because that one person gets then to vote. And you lose your due process. If you pass that ordinance, you're going to lose your due process on that stuff. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments, sir. We now resume the proclamations. This one reads, whereas travel has a positive effect on Topeka, Kansas, and the nation's economic prosperity, image, and abroad, it also impacts business productivity and travelers' well-being. I know that when I travel too, but I prefer to come back home to Topeka. Travel within Topeka provides significant economic benefits for our city, generating more than $341 million in economic impact in 2017. Whereas travel is among the largest private sector employers in the United States, supporting 3,482 jobs in Shawnee County in 2017, and representing 5% of all employment in Shawnee County. Whereas traveler spending directly generated more than $56 million in local government tax revenues, funds used to support essential services and programs. Now, therefore, I, Michelle de la Isla, do proclaim this week, May 7th through the 11th, as Economic Development Week. So one of the challenges that Brett Otting and I had was that he was in a tourism conference, and they were measuring all the mayors that talk about tourism. And when I received that message, I looked at him and I said, watch me. So I started tweeting about tourism. So come to Topeka, wherever you're at. Tourism in Topeka is wonderful. So Brett, why don't you say a few words?
Thank you. I'll be less interesting than everybody else tonight, I'm sure. But it is a very good thing that we celebrate National Tourism Week in Topeka. Topeka has a lot of travel and tourism. Last year, we experienced an 18% increase in visitor spending, which attributed to that $56 million. It's important for us, for everybody to understand that that $56 million goes to fixing potholes, paying for the fire department, paying for the police officers. So visitor spending is just as good as residential spending, and that's what we're trying to do on a day in and day out basis, is bring as much additional money into the community. The last thing I would like to say is Thursday is our SMASH Summit. It stands for Sales and Marketing, Service and Hospitality. We have 2 New York Times bestselling authors coming to town. Tickets are for sale, and we hope that we see more people there.
Thank you. Let's recognize Visit Topeka. Body, thank you so much for your flexibility. We now proceed with the consent agenda. If the clerk would read.
A is a resolution introduced by Councilmember Karen Hiller approving a special event known as KU Kickoff Street Party. B is a resolution introduced by Councilmember Sandra Clear approving a special event known as the 85th Annual Our Lady of Guadalupe Fiesta Mexicana. C is a resolution introduced by Councilmember Sandra Clear granting Fiesta Mexicana an exception to the provisions of City of Topeka Code Section 945-150 at Seek concerning noise prohibitions. D is a resolution introduced by Councilmember Karen Hiller granting the Celtic Fox an exception to the provisions of the City of Topeka Code Section 945-150 at Seek concerning noise prohibitions. E is a resolution introduced by City Manager Brent Trout amending Resolution of Advisability and Authorization Number 8675, which established the Millers Reserve Subdivision Improvement District to provide for street improvements, improvement project number T601048. F are minutes of the regular meeting of May 1, 2018. There is a list of applications before you, and staff is recommending approval.
We have heard the consent agenda. At this point in time, I would ask what the pleasure of the body is. We have a motion to approve by Councilwoman Clear. We have a second by Councilman Padilla. We now proceed with the voting.
We have 8 yes.
8 having voting yes, the consent agenda passes. We now move into action items. Item A, ordinance for the traffic and pedestrian safety. If the clerk would read.
A is an ordinance introduced by City Manager Brent Trout creating Chapter 10.80 and Title 10 of the Topeka Municipal Code concerning traffic and pedestrian safety.
City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. The one item that I would like to let council know, I put on the table a revised map that shows the arterial routes and streets that would be affected by this ordinance. Then also some research that was done based on that related to the locations that the NBA boot block was considered, where the locations are that they do those boot actions. And so that provides information that shows that 6 were not affected at all by this ordinance change. 3 were partly affected, and 1 that would not be able to be used as this ordinance exists. As further information regarding the impact, which was something that was an issue discussed at the last meeting. So I wanted to make sure you had that information. Otherwise, staff stands for questions on any additional information that may be needed relative to this ordinance.
Thank you, City Manager. There are no individuals signed up for public comment on this issue. So therefore, we'll either entertain a motion in a second so that we could have discussion in the body. We have a motion by Councilwoman Ortiz, a second by Councilwoman Clear. We are open to discussion. Councilman Lesser.
Yes, Madam Mayor and members of the council, I have, prior to even being elected to my term, have been contacted by many of my constituents with concerns of both of these issues in action item A and B. And I felt compelled to do a great deal of research on the issue. Through the course of developing the ordinance, I've spoken with Wichita's mayor on their current ordinance, representatives of the fire department, representatives of the police department, and also met with Barry Feaker of the Rescue Mission. What I want to be clear is I support in concept both of these ordinances. But one thing that I have determined is, in my opinion, we have a solid start, a solid foundation, but I also believe there's several different issues that need more thought and planning before we move forward to pass the ordinance. That being said, I would like to make a motion to move to a special committee made up of 8 members, including members of the governing body, as well as community members, community leaders, law enforcement, and the Topeka Fire Department to conduct further study to the proposed pedestrian safety and camping ordinance. for a period of 3 months, with the committee providing a final report and recommendation no later than September 1st.
So just for protocol, yes, Councilwoman Ortiz.
I guess, I don't think there's I mean, if he wants to move it to committee, we have a Public Health and Safety Committee that's already there, that, you know, all of us can go to any of the committees, but we have a Public Health and Safety Committee, and this seems like it would fall under that category. And our, we always have written notes from our secretary or assistant. So I guess why I'm questioning why you would want it of 8 people and to have a special committee.
My thought is, by the nature of this and having the ability to also appoint outside members rather than just of the council to the committee, based on reading the rules of the special committees and speaking with Mrs. Robertson, it felt that to address it, doing it a special committee seemed to be the appropriate way to proceed to do that.
Well, I'm going to respectfully disagree, because I think that's what our committees are set up for. And anybody can come and give their testimony and their input, and it'll come back to the body. So I won't support that motion.
Councilwoman Claire.
Can you be more specific on, and are we talking about both now? Are we talking about which because he's
We are
mentioning both.
currently on the traffic and pedestrian safety ordinance only.
Okay,
we have to
because
do
he
one at a
said
time.
both.
Right.
Okay. What are your several issues that you think they need to work on?
I think we need more research on the legal background in regards to the camping. So you want me just to address them A
All we're
at this-
talking about is the
A
pedestrian.
at this point?
Order. So
That's
it's,
fine. No, I just feel that we need to address the legal ramifications first in A of the ordinance for traffic pedestrian. I think we need to get some more feedback on that to avoid litigation. I think we need to have a concrete plan with law enforcement on how they are going to handle enforcing this, how they're going to handle providing warnings, who they're going to take to jail, who they're going to give a warning to, where we're going to put these gentlemen, these ladies and gentlemen, if in fact they do return the next day and they're still there doing the same action. And I think we need to have also discussion with fire of different options in regards to the MDA boot campaign, because that does have an impact on them as well as the MDA as far as funds. If as written, without any exceptions or any research that has been done to determine whether we can get a special event for them, whether we can allow them to do it as city workers, no different than a city worker doing construction. I think all these are things that we need to look at, we need to address, we need to have answers for before we send boots on the ground for the police department to start going out and trying to enforce the ordinance.
City Manager, Deputy Mayor, and then I'll come back to you. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. I appreciate you doing this. We have a lot of initiatives in the community to try and address homelessness and panhandling. Those are serious issues that affect folks in our community. And we have had a number of efforts, outreach programs. There's lots of organizations that are working on this. I think this is an incredible opportunity to partner with those organizations and take a second look at this issue. I won't go so far as to say that this is a reboot of our community's attempt to address this, but this absolutely gives us a chance to kick that into high gear and to pull those other organizations and give them voting privileges to buy into what would be a community solution to solve this problem. I think that as an incredibly powerful tool to show the world we really care about these folks, and we're looking at all of the aspects of this, not just the legal aspect, not just the rescue mission aspect. How can we pull our community together to address all of this? I do agree. I think a special committee is necessary. I agree we have the Public Health and Safety Committee, but at the end of the day, this is a community problem, and I think it's bigger than just government. And that's why I'll support bringing these other folks on at a committee level and giving them power to help shape how we're going to solve this problem, because it is critical, and we do need a good answer for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Clear.
Couple of things. The MDA, I mean, he just told us about, there's only one place they won't be able to stand. So I don't know what you're going to research besides what's already been given to us. As far as getting a committee together, everything we do affects our committees. Are we going to start sending everything to special committees because it affects our community? That is not what we are to do. We're supposed to set policy. They implement our policy. If we start getting in the weeds and trying to figure out what are the police going to do, how are they going to do that, I don't think that's our place. Then we're telling them how to do their job. The police can figure that out. I don't think we need to have a committee figure out how the police are going to handle this. I lost my train of thought. And legal, you said something about legal. I trust that our legal department has researched this. I'm not sure a committee needs to come together and say, oh, your legal department didn't research it enough. I have faith that they did. I think they're very serious about this, so I won't support this either.
So at this point, we have a motion for sending this to a special and creating a special committee. Do we have a second for that motion? We have a second. Is there any additional discussion? We have a motion and we have a second. Councilwoman Ortiz.
I will support it going to the Public Health and Safety Committee and with more research, but I won't support a special committee. So if you want to break them up, that's fine. And if you don't, that's fine as well, because I too would like to see a little bit more research done. I think this has been before us a couple of times to see what we've missed or whatever. But I just feel like when we put our committees together and everybody can have input and positive input, I just cannot support a special one.
Well, I will support the motion, and the reason that I will do so is because I think that we had Reverend Feeker here talking about how we needed to take a pause on this one and really take a look at how we were going to evaluate this, and there was a lot more work done. And we have amazing staff and a legal team, but we don't have the resources and the experience that maybe the rescue mission has and the other organizations that are going to be brought on board so that we could have a broader look at how we're developing this. Are there any other comments? Councilman Padilla.
Thank you, Your Honor. Like you said, we've had this before us, and I've sat out in that audience before and listened to the discussion. And I've been with the police department too during those same kind of discussions. And I see the struggle between trying to do something that's good, but at the same time coming at it totally with the enforcement piece and with not enough discussion about how you fill in the holes. And I think that a better holistic approach that includes a team of providers, safety professionals, can help us develop that, combined with some of the organizations in the city of Topeka who are concerned about the welfare of not just safety, but how it impacts us and where will it move some of the activities. I fully support the MDA boat fund drive, but I'm sorry, Chief. The other day I was driving down the road and I saw some firefighters come off the island, cross a couple lanes of traffic to accept a donation. I'm glad people want to donate, but I'm worried that somewhere along the line a firefighter is going to get hurt. And that's a very real concern. There are inattentive drivers for any number of reasons. Texting, radios, earphones in their head and things like that. I'm just concerned that somebody's going to get hurt. So I don't want to necessarily say stop everything. I want to say let's look at it. Maybe there's a permit process we need to look at. Make sure that everybody understands the rules so that they are concerned about safety more than anything, more than getting that donation. I think that is our real concern. And I've seen churches and other groups doing the same thing. All for a good cause, but placing themselves in possible danger. And that's the thing that I think that we need to really take a hard look at. And yes, it is our job to do that as city council members, but I don't think we turn a deaf ear to others who might have other solutions that we don't think of. I'm sure that this body doesn't think of everything when they're giving some consideration. We try to do our best, but there's always somebody else who has a different perspective that can't hurt us. And so, not being that familiar about the scope of the committee that Councilwoman Ortiz talks about, I can't see how it harms anything to go into a special committee and talk in more detail where we don't feel rushed and feel like there's the opportunity to bring in as many partners as possible. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilman Emerson?
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I don't know if this is a question for legal or for Councilman Lesser, but I am all for deferring this or referring this to a committee. The only thing I'm not certain of is this a prescribed thing? We already have a mechanism for doing this sort of thing, or is this kind of an ad hoc committee that could just be put together?
No, Councilmember Emerson, there's a provision in the governing body rules that provide for a special committee to be formed, and the only thing that really needs to be done is for the person to make the motion, provide an outline of what the task of that committee would be, and the time frame within which the task would be accomplished. And the deputy mayor makes the appointments under the rule. I think it's Rule 8.3 of the governing body rules.
Okay, Mr. Lesser, would you mind just repeating? I know you said 8 people and a certain number of council members.
And one more thing, we had the motion on the floor. It was seconded by Ortiz and Councilmember Clear. So this would be a substitute motion to this motion. Okay.
Madam, can I respond, Madam Mayor?
Yes, Councilman Lesser, pardon me.
My motion was to move to form a special committee made up of 8 members, including not only governing body members, but also community leaders, law enforcement, Topeka Police Department, to conduct further study related to the proposed pedestrian safety ordinance for a period of 3 months, with committee providing its report and/or recommendations no later than September 1st, 2018. And obviously, based on the rules, I would be making the same motion on action item 5B.
Thank you.
Okay, we now, Deputy Mayor.
Just had a quick question. So there is no provision to add people, add ad hoc committee members to an existing committee, then, is there? Like, we couldn't take the Public Health and Safety Committee and add these additional folks as necessary?
As it's written, the standing committees are made up of those individuals who are named.
All right, I just want to clarify.
Yeah, in the past, they've invited people to come to the committee meetings and make comment,
Yeah,
but
they're invited,
no.
but they're not part
They're
of the
not
committee.
members of the committee.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay. Seeing no additional questions, we proceed with the voting. The mayor does not vote as is a home rule matter. Oh, question, Councilwoman Ortiz.
Is that amendment? Do we have
We have a
It's a
substitute motion on the floor. So therefore, making the vote right now would, if it passes, the initial motion that was made to approve the ordinance is not in effect anymore. What would occur now is that the motion that passes now, if it passes, it substitutes that, and the items are sent to committee.
Does he have a second? Does he need a
Yes,
second?
Deputy Mayor seconded.
Okay.
We now proceed with the voting.
We have 5 yes, with Clear and Ortiz voting no.
Motion fails.
Motion fails? Okay. Motion fails. We now have on the table the initial motion.
Point of order, Mayor.
Yes.
According to the thing I'm reading here, majority of the vote is 5. It says on here, majority vote of the city council 5. The mayor does not vote. Is that? And I may be incorrect, maybe there's some parliamentary thing here, but
Was it? Oh, it's a home rule ordinance.
It's a home rule.
Right. So it's just not set up that way on the, okay.
So the motion passes. Okay.
Contrary to what the screen says.
So the motion passes. So at this point in time, the traffic and pedestrian safety item on our agenda is going to be passed to a special committee. The Councilman Lesser then will work with Deputy Mayor will make the assignments of the individuals who participate there. We now proceed with item B, ordinance on camping. If the clerk would read.
B is an ordinance introduced by City Manager Brent Trout creating Article 3 of Chapter 9.5 of the Topeka Municipal Code concerning camping.
City Manager.
Mayor, City Council, I have nothing further to add to this item.
Councilman Lesser.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, again, on this item, I move to form a special committee made up of 8 members and including not only governing body members, but also community leaders, law enforcement, Topeka Fire Department to conduct further study related to the camping on public and private property ordinance for a period of 3 months, with the committee providing its report and/or recommendations no later than September 1st, 2018.
Do I have a Deputy Mayor? You second the motion. Are there additional comments or questions from the body? Councilwoman Clear.
I talked to a lot of people about this, and I got a lot of calls. I mean, this really affects my district. I have to fight for my district, and I believe in this fight. There are agencies, at least three, that have a street outreach. There are agencies that have homeless prevention. We have the shelter plus care that we do as the city. There's a lot of things that we do for the homeless and we provide. A lot of people that I heard from are worried that this is going to affect the economic development, which we heard about tonight, that tourism, we're building our tourism, and at least the Noto district is seeing the camping as a deterrent for their tourism. This may be a tough love thing that we need to do. I don't think it lacks passion. I really think it's passionate that we try and help them, that we push them, you know, let's get some help. And I think what Mr. Gagne said last week about the ones that are willing to get help and those that aren't, I think most of them that are still out there aren't willing to get help. I think we need to care for all of the city, all of the citizens, and not just this group of homeless people that, you know, camp where they want, leave their trash, which causes the city resource money to go pick up that trash. There is a homeless task force already formed. It's been around for years and years. There's a core group of at least 30 agencies that come together and talk about the homeless needs. And I'm just wondering if this task force hasn't done anything in the past 30, 40 years, I think it's time to stop talking about it and do something about it. I know what your arguments are going to be, but I think we can pass this ordinance and change it. But I think it's important we do something now, or I need to know from you who I'm supposed to send my complaints to and my calls. Because people call and complain, and then the police cannot do anything. Their hands are tied, they're frustrated. So I'm going to have some input. Where am I going to send these calls for the homeless campers if we can't call the police? No one has control. So.
Councilwoman Ortiz.
Thank you. I would like to see this again go to the Public Health and Safety Committee. I would agree with Sandra on a lot of things, except this is, I know that she has a lot of in her district, but it's all over. I have one across the street from me in a field, and that man comes and uses my water. And he's out there in a tent. And again, it's an issue with private property and their owners, because part of the police department, they can't get onto the private property because the lady won't give them permission because she owns the whole block, which is very frustrating. I know I've had a lot of complaints, so it's just not down there by the campsite. We've had somebody killed down there. It's a whole new world if you go down there after dark. And I remember when David got killed, and he was telling us that it's underground and all the people that are down there. We do have a strong task force, but there's just so much that they can do. But they are doing something, and they have been doing something. I was a part of that with my previous job. And also, we do have somebody on call from the city. I'm trying to think of his name, that a couple of them, that they go and they talk to them as soon as we call them. I would like to see a little bit more research, but we've got to speed it up. It's getting out of control. It's getting way out of control, all over the city. And so that's the only thing I'd just like to see it go to, not a special task force. You know, again, our committees are designed to hear and work with anybody, and we've spent tons of hours with different people, expertise. So it's not to take away from that, but that's why we have them, and that's what it's designed to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Ortiz. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Your Honor. So two quick questions. One for Mr. Lesser. This would go to the same committee that we just previously established, correct?
That would be my thought,
Okay.
yes.
And then for you, Ms. Robertson, there's nothing that says we can't send this to a committee, deliberate, and then return it before the 3-month deadline. Is that correct?
No, I think if the motion was set up simply to say that we're going to get something back to you all by X date, it just has to come back by X date.
Okay.
No later.
Thank you. Just wanted to clarify. There's 2 points.
Councilman Padilla?
Deputy Mayor, thank you for asking that question, because I agree something needs to be done this time of year. It's even going to come out more to our attention. And I would appreciate that with Councilman Lesser's intent and with his committee that he's putting together, that we can act quicker than September and come and bring to the body some recommendations and resolutions that we can consider that have all the parts in place. I know that that's a consideration that we have, is that how are we going to fill in these gaps again? And will we have unintended consequences that we haven't planned for? And I think it's important that we do that, but I do agree there's some urgency to it. And so I would hope that we could do it in a shorter amount of time.
Councilman Lesser?
No, I would agree. And you know, the one thing that I really see as a positive here is, what I'm not hearing is that any of us are disagreeing in regards to what needs to be done and that we have an issue and we have a problem. We may have a little minor disagreement on how we go about to solve that and get to what the conclusion is, but we all have the same agenda and we all want the same thing. I guess the reason I'm passionate about this is something that all the way back to when I was knocking on doors, I was hearing about. Mr. Mitch Douthit, who came and spoke last meeting, spoke because I asked him to share his story of what was going on. So I am tied to this, and this is something on all different levels that I want to get done for us and for our city and for our district, my district as well. But sometimes, you know, a wise man told me sometimes, because I make decisions a lot of times and go too fast. And a wise man told me a few years ago, Mike, pause. And I just feel like we're at a point where taking a pause, really looking at this, looking hard at it, and putting due diligence to get it back sooner than later, I think just is the appropriate. And I feel that as complex of an issue as this is, after conversations and emails with Ms. Robertson and with the other members who I've talked to, either at Vallejo, at the rescue mission, on the fire department, police department, I think we need the specialties of those people, and that's why I feel passionate about sending it to a special committee with all these people in there. So, but like I said, the great thing is I think we all want the same thing, and it's okay if we disagree on how we get there. We just have to get there. Thank you.
Councilwoman Clear, then Councilwoman Ortiz.
Once again, can you be more specific about what is their goal? What parts are they putting in place that's not, or what are they looking at? What's their goal? What's their
Councilwoman
end?
Lesser.
What would the goal of the committee be? I envision it, and with Deputy Mayor's appointment is that we will be able to look closer at the legalities of it. I have all the faith as well in our legal staff, and especially the talented Lisa Robertson over there. But the other thing is we're as far as that goes, I think we need to look at this, look at all other municipalities that have similar legislation, especially on the camping, because that is where it's been vague. There's not been as much nationally for those type of legislations, and where they've been challenged. And no different than the issue we have right now. We felt we were on good ground with the vaping issue and the smoking ordinance. Okay, well, still not saying that we're not, but we are having to deal with that issue as far as a lawsuit on that issue, and I want to avoid that. I want to look at the opportunities that not only do we use this as a deterrent, but we educate the public. We have to go about ways of educating the people who, it's not just the people who are panhandling, because the other people who are going to get ticketed are the people who are giving the money. We have to educate that. How do we get that information out? Who does that? What PR campaign do we do to do that? I think those are all things. And then, as you pointed out, Mrs. Clear, you pointed out, the problems aren't going to be the ones probably that we can help. The problems are going to be the ones like you just talked about, camping, that don't help, don't want to help, don't want to leave. What do we do with them? Where do they go? They go into my house? They go into your house? Where are they going? They got to go somewhere. Well, it is our problem. It is our problem. That's why we're here. It is our problem. Well, it's my problem.
Councilwoman Ortiz.
Thank you, and I'll let this rest. I'd like to challenge all my colleagues to go in the 3300 block of Fremont. And this has been near and dear, and I've asked the legal department several times for clarification to the man that lives in a tent. He lives there. He bought the property for $100 and some, and he put up a tent, and there's nothing we can do about it. Staff hasn't, excuse me?
This won't solve that either, if you own the property.
Exactly. But we got to figure it out, because we're going to have that all over. That to me is a part of this. It's a part of this. Because he's mentally ill. He's there when it snows. He never leaves. So I would hope you would go to Mr. Henderson's district in the 3300 block of Fremont. Padilla, that's you too. And look at that. He'll talk to you. He'll invite you in. But it is our problem. We need to do something about that so we can get him help and it doesn't happen all over.
Councilman Emerson.
Thank you, Your Honor. If I may ask of Mr. Lesser, Councilman Lesser, do you see this as critical that these two subjects go to the same group? Or would you, I just see some advantages to public health and safety looking into this, especially, I believe Councilwoman Clear is on that committee, and this deeply affects her district.
I honestly had not given that thought, to be quite honest with you.
Deputy Mayor.
For the good of the discussion, if you wanted to make a friendly change to the amendment that I seconded to send it to the committee, I'm happy with that. Or if you'd like to keep it going to the original committee, the original special committee, I'm fine with that too. However you'd like to proceed.
Honestly, I don't have, if that's the will of the council, then I'm fine with the camping portion going to the public if that's fine.
So is that being presented as a friendly amendment?
That's correct.
And you still second it? Okay, so we have a friendly amendment now that this the camping portion of this ordinance will be sent to the Public Health and Safety Committee of the council. Councilman Padilla.
Just a quick question. Thank you, Mayor. Would that standing committee then have a timeline as well to come back with a recommendation or finding?
The timeline still stands, just
It
like
can
the,
come back
yes.
sooner than that 90 days. Because that's the thing that I want, is that we don't wait that 90 days.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Councilwoman Clear.
Why does one go to public health and safety and one not, when you're doing the same thing with both committees? They're doing the research, they're making sure we did the research right, there's going to be education on one. I don't know what else they're doing on the camping.
Councilman Emerson.
If I may respond to that, Mayor. Councilwoman Clear, I guess that was my idea, to craft some sort of compromise here and divide the work up so that one committee could start on one and the other committee could look at the other. Because although these are kind of intertwined, it's a different thing. I mean, you have the portions that we're looking at with this pedestrian safety are not in your district, but a lot of these camping problems are in your district. And my thought process was simply, you guys could look at that and perhaps you could get it done quicker and they could get the other thing done quicker, the panhandling as well, if you divide up the work. As well as it's something that camping really applies to your district and you're on that committee, I believe.
So just so I understand, the role of that committee in this instance is to do legal research.
City Manager.
Well, what I would say is it would be to hear testimony from those individuals that are interested in this matter and the way that it's crafted, and provide testimony that would either support or be opposed to the ordinance as it's crafted, and then for the committee to determine whether or not that testimony warranted a change in the existing ordinance as it's proposed, with consultation with legal at the same time.
Okay, because that's not what Councilmember Lesser said. So does that go back also to the pedestrian safety? Is it the same thing, or is that two
I
different
interpreted
things?
it to be the same, that it would be their same task. They need to review, hear information, and determine if the language in that ordinance is the language that the city council should approve.
So we have on the floor a friendly amendment motion that states that this body will send to the Public Health and Safety Committee this ordinance to be reviewed with the same parameters of before September coming back to the body. Just want to make sure so that we are now going to proceed then with the voting if there's no additional comments or questions. Okay, we proceed with the voting.
All right, we have 6 yes with Ms. Claire voting no.
6 having voting yes, the motion passes. The camping ordinance will be passed on to the Public Health and Safety Committee. We now proceed with the non-action items in the agenda, a discussion of the fire alarms, if the clerk would read.
A is discussion of the proposed false fire alarm ordinance for commercial facilities.
City Manager?
Governing body, tonight, we're having a presentation regarding the false fire alarm ordinance. I switch that around every once in a while. With this, though, it's an issue that's been identified. Actually, prior to leaving Mason City, we were looking at something similar to this. It's an issue with many departments, and so we felt when this was brought to me that this is something that we should consider. And so tonight, the fire chief and fire marshal will make a presentation to provide us the information as we consider this ordinance.
Good evening, Chief.
Madam Mayor, governing body, As Mr. Tribe indicated, you know, I've been researching this. Fire Marshal Mike Martin has actually been doing this since 2015. That's when the idea came to him about pursuing this more. It was one of the first things that I considered with him when I met him just over a year ago when I first started here in Topeka. I told him, I tasked him with pushing ahead, get this commercial building false alarm. This is only specific to commercial buildings. So he's prepared to go through this with you, and at the end, I will summarize his presentation.
Thank you.
Mayor, Council, Mr. City Manager, thank you for giving me an opportunity to come up here today. So we're going to discuss just a little bit about commercial false alarms, and as the chief said, this is only commercial, doesn't have anything to do with single-family dwellings. So why do we need this ordinance? Well, over the past 3 years, the Topeka Fire Department has responded on average to 964 false alarms per year, with a high of 1,200 in 2015. So we clearly have a lot of false alarms we're going on. I want to make sure right from the start, these are actual system malfunctions. There's no emergency. There's no fire. These are false alarms, pure and simple false alarms. One of the things when I started looking, we started talking about accreditation. The chief has talked to you about that, and we have a self-assessment that we have to do. We have to look kind of inward to make sure that we're using our resources appropriately. And when you look at those numbers, you see that when we have that kind of amount of resources being used on something that is purely false, it's not a real good use of our resources. So again, in 2017, the nuisance alarm system, when we talk about nuisance alarms, if you looked in the ordinance, it talked about, it has a little different definition, and we've gone through several different rewrites on this ordinance. But what we decided is this is more to do about education. So we wanted to move that nuisance alarm back a little bit. So we went to the second tier of the level. So once you hit 11 false alarms that you pay violations for, it's actually 13 total. Then we consider it a nuisance false alarm. So if we look at 2017, we had 12 addresses that were responsible for 212 calls. These would be a nuisance system. One address was responsible for 43 false alarms. In 2016, we had 9 addresses responsible for 140 false alarms, and 1 address responsible for 46 of those false alarms. And back in 2015, we had 8 addresses responsible for 143 and 1 for 23. So there's clearly a significant problem that we need to address on some of these. So I wanted to kind of give you a tangible on what the value of this is. So if we look at the resources are valued between $300,000 and $750,000 that we're utilizing to respond to these false alarms. That's based on 2015 FEMA data that it gives a reimbursement rates if you were to go to an emergency in another county or something, it was declared a disaster. So looking at that, that's upwards of $750,000 value that we're putting out each year. In 2017, there was approximately 3,935 personnel hours utilized just for false alarms. And you can see just looking at those numbers why this is common across Kansas and across the country. We see it in Wichita, Salina, Manhattan, Emporia, Overland Park, and Leawood, among others. And so not only really the value of what the city, our taxpayers are losing here, but when we talk about a little bit of the safety, when we go to these false alarms, I base those numbers on a 15-minute response. You know, leave the station, it's a false alarm, you come home 15 minutes. We will have companies on scene for an hour or better sometimes, waiting for callback to come back at night, to unlock the doors, to let us go in, to reset the alarm. So we spend a significant amount of time doing that. And when we do that, we open gaps in our system. We have those companies out of their first alarm territory, so people have to respond from different locations and increasing our response times. So we also have to look at the wear and the tear on the equipment and the firefighters as well. And I think this last point is probably one that's most important as all, is we're responding to these false alarms, and it's creating an undue risk to the public and to ourselves. Every time we pull out of a station and we're running lights and sirens somewhere, we're putting our firefighters and we're putting the public at risk. If it's justified, then that's a risk that's good. We need to take that risk to get to that emergency. But if it's unjustified, and these are purely false alarms, we're putting the public and ourselves at risk for nothing. So what are we trying to accomplish here? Obviously, we want to reduce the number of false alarms. And how we're going to accomplish that is going to be an education component along with an enforcement component. But the main goal here is to educate those property owners and to get their systems working properly. That's our goal. We want, when the alarm goes off, that it's something real and we can get there and manage it. We're going to require that all monitored fire alarms be permitted. So they're going to have to apply for a permit within the city. The permits will be renewed annually, and what we're going to accomplish with that is that when they renew their permits annually, they're going to have to provide us with the alarm testing and maintenance data so that we know every year, as the code says, that their alarm system has been tested and maintained. So they'll obviously, like I said before, this is about education. So when a new system goes in, we don't want to start penalizing people. We want to educate. So there's a 60-day period when a new system goes in that there won't be any charges assessed to anybody for a false alarm. And that'll give our inspectors and our firefighters an opportunity to work with those individuals and see if there's any adjustments that can be made before it goes into effect. You'll be allowed 3 a year that won't result in a violation. And the violations will be assessed on a tiered system. And then, as I spoke before, the systems that get to that 11 mark, they can be designated a nuisance system, and that gives us the ability to make them go in and do some work on their system to get it working properly. Have somebody come in and test it and look at reasons why they're having issues. So the permit fee we're looking at is $25 permit fee, and mainly that's just a processing fee. The applications will, like I said, be required to renew annually, but we want to make sure we're not penalizing those people that are doing the systems right. So every year they'll be able to renew their permit if they didn't have any violations. It's not going to cost anything. They're going to still turn in their testing information to us so that we know their system's been maintained and looked at. So it's really going to give us an opportunity to keep track that all the systems are working properly. This is what our fee matrix looks like. It's actually more lenient than a lot of places around Kansas. It has a lot more tiers to it, and you really don't start getting into, when we're talking 21 to 30 false alarms, we need to get them to a place where our education's obviously not working. We want to get them to bring the professionals in to look at their system. And when I talk about that, that could be something as easy as getting the smoke detection system calibrated better, or in a cooking area, putting in a heat detection instead of smoke detection to make sure that to get the systems working. And obviously, we'll have an appeal system. The ordinance talks about storms and other things that could generate false alarms. But we'll also have an appeal system that's in accordance with the Topeka Municipal Code. So that's already on the books. And that's kind of the basis of it. The chief wanted to come up and kind of give a summary of everything, and then we'll stand for questions.
So obviously we have a problem with false alarms in the city. In fact, tonight I was walking over here. As I walked out of my residence, there was 2 fire trucks sitting on Kansas Avenue. There was an automatic alarm at that building. I just kept on walking. I saw the guys coming out of the building, taking their gear off. As I walked towards City Hall, I saw a fire truck and an ambulance sitting outside the side door of the county courthouse. And one of the employees there had fallen, and I think she had a broken hip. Well, the 2 pieces of apparatus were up on Kansas Avenue were the ones that would have responded a lot quicker. But we had to wait for the apparatus from Station 4 to get to that true emergency. That individual had fallen on the sidewalk. So that's one of the issues that we have. Obviously, it expands our resources. a lot. Wichita, for example, I think they had 2,000 alarm calls, and 76% of them were actually false alarms. Their fines or their violations, it goes up quickly. It's 100 for the first one after one. You know, and it just keeps up and keeps going up. We're not here to make money. We're here to save money by not putting the apparatus and the personnel out on the street unnecessarily. The passage of the ordinance will be able to address this issue through, like Mike said, the education of the individuals that own alarm systems, and it's just to make the community a lot safer for both the citizens and the firefighters. We'll stand for any questions.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. So I have a couple of questions. I understand the concept behind all this. I don't agree with charging yet another fee to businesses. I'm not opposed to fining them after a certain number of instances. I do agree that, you know, if you're not going to fix your system, you know, obviously you should pay for that. But this should all already be covered with occupancy permits. If you don't have a working alarm, then you shouldn't have an occupancy permit. And I believe you all have the authority to yank those if the alarm is not working properly. My understanding from my own experience is you have to have an alarm certified every year and provided that to the city to maintain your occupancy permit. So why do we need yet another law on the books when we already have one that covers that?
To my knowledge, we wouldn't pull an occupancy permit. If an alarm wasn't working or it failed the testing, we may institute a fire watch and require individuals every hour
Yeah, which
walk
is
all
much
the
more
halls.
strenuous than paying a fine.
Yeah, you know, the $20 permit fee is in line with other cities that do it. We mirrored a lot of what other municipalities did, and I think, I mean, eventually we're going to be at a point where there's going to be a lot of paperwork that's going to be dealing with that, and that may offset it a little bit.
And I understand that, but technology should solve the paperwork issue. So again, we have a mechanism in place now to force people to fix their alarms. I don't understand why we're not using it. You know, if they're not going to fix their alarm, and clearly there's some that are not, if you have alarms that are going off 20, 30 times a year, then yeah, those buildings are not safe, and we should pull their occupancy permits, absolutely.
Strictly by code, simply because they're giving false alarms doesn't give us the right to necessarily put them on a fire watch. It still may be operational, it's just not operating correctly. It's alarming, but I don't believe by code that I could pull somebody's occupancy permit or put them in a fire watch when their system is working. It's just
malfunctioning constantly.
Yeah, it's not that it's not alarming, it's alarming too much.
I would consider
But
that
I'd be happy to
malfunction.
look into it.
So, I mean, I'm not opposed to what you guys are trying to do, absolutely. I mean, I do agree with recovering our costs after a certain period, and I'm very appreciative that we are putting buffers in there for, especially with new systems when there's dialing in, absolutely get that. I guess I'm more shocked that we have all these problems now within our existing code. That, I mean, if we have systems that are malfunctioning that much, I'm surprised it's gone this long before we've tried to fix them.
It actually, you know, as the chief said, I started gathering data on this in 2015. We started really taking a hard look at it. And those numbers have went down from 1,200 in 2015 down to, I think, last year.
Yeah, there is improvement, which is an excellent thing, I think.
And we're currently, this year already, we're currently in the neighborhood of 260, I think, false alarms for this year. So we're kind of staying consistent with that pattern. Some of the drops we have done have been because we've gone out and we've talked to them and we've got them to understand and fix some things.
Great.
But when it gets to the point that, you know, they're really getting assessed some high fines, when we talk about the 46 at one place, when they're starting to get $200 every time their alarm goes off, that's going to be the things that's going to get them in there to go ahead and get the company in to redesign some of that system and fix those things. And I think that's what we're really after.
And they're not doing that now to maintain their occupancy permits.
I will have to check on that, Deputy Mayor, but I'm not. I don't know that I can pull somebody's occupancy.
And no is an acceptable answer. If indeed there's a gap in the code, then that's fine. You know, obviously we want to make sure it's covered. I just don't want to add another regulation on top of one we already have that maybe we're just not using effectively.
I don't believe I have a system. We have a system in place right now.
Good enough for me. Thank you.
Councilman Emerson, to be followed by Councilman Lesser.
Thank you, Mayor. Gentlemen, I really appreciate you bringing this up to us and the ordinance you've presented. I guess 2 points. First of all, I do agree with the Deputy Mayor that I hate yet another fee a business has to pay, because I can tell you my business, I think we probably pay, 10 years ago, we probably pay like $10,000 more in things now, It's not just you guys, but it's, heavy tax on this, on trucks and everything else. And however, that said, it looks like this is a one-time $25 fee. Then if you don't have any false alarms, you don't have to pay it again. So I can stomach that. But the other part is these fines to me seem incredibly low. To me, frankly, they don't escalate quickly enough. I'm all for not charging anything for the first several a year. But if my math is right, you could have 20 and you're only paying $650. You could have 30 and you're only paying a total of $1,400. And I guess my problem is, or the problem I see with that is, as a business, say it's going to cost me $10,000 to fix the system, or I can just pay $1,400 a year forever. So I think at some point maybe there needs to be a punitive part of it that's, hey, it's cheaper to fix the system than keep getting fines, especially all the reasons you gentlemen brought up.
And that is an issue we can revisit. We just try to take numbers throughout the state and everything. There are some cities that do escalate a lot quicker and larger amounts. This was the means, the average of a lot of them, but that would be something definitely we would look into to reconsider before any vote.
Thank you.
Councilman Lesser.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Hey, thank you very much for your presentation. I think you guys did some good work here. I also, though, I'm not jumping up and down about the actual permit fees for actually having it. My suggestion, though, would be, along with Councilman Emerson's, is let's look at the violation fee deal, and let's start at 4 to 10 instead of being 25. Let's put that at 100. I mean, you've gotten 3 opportunities. This is the 4th time. You're at $100. I like that better than the $25 permit fee, against every other business. I just, as a small business owner again, and I feel, some of these places that don't even have to have a fire alarm, then actually put one in, which is an advantage for everybody, gives you guys quicker warning if something, I think I'd rather, like I said, see you guys kind of rework that and start at $100 and make it hurt, after 3.
I think we can come up with several different matrices and get them to you guys to look at to see where you want to land on it. But we're certainly not opposed to that.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Clear, to be followed by Councilwoman Ortiz.
I agree with Councilmember Emerson. It needs to be raised. But I also was wondering, is there a percent of certain commercial businesses that hit this matrix that, is there like 2% that always has the same calls, or is it pretty much spread out between all the businesses?
I think if you look at the highest tier, we have some repeat offenders, but the remainder of it is a pretty general mix. I haven't studied the data as closely to see on when you get down to the 3 to 10 or the 4 to 10 to see exactly how much repeat there is over the years, but stays pretty consistent as far as numbers go.
Councilwoman Ortiz.
Thank you. I think this is a good thing. I appreciate this. I wish we could find people that don't put our free smoke detectors in their home, because we would have a lot of money right now. Free smoke detectors, But can you give an example of just some of the offenders? Is it just like some of the calls? Is it just they're just malfunctioning? Is that a lot of the calls, or do you see a lot of stuff?
I think one of the things that we see a lot is people forgetting to put their system in test. They'll do a fire alarm drill or something at their business, which is great, and we love that. But they don't call dispatch, they don't put their system in test, and we wind up going to that. We do see at the primarily fires that occur in hotels are in kitchens, and we do see hotels that have kitchens in them that we see repeat. And those are the people that we want to try and educate and get them to make some changes to their system, to put that heat detection instead of smoke detection in that particular area. But a lot of it simply is just system malfunctions. The systems aren't cleaned yearly, and they false.
How will we handle the elderly and the disabled that can't afford this fee? That would be my concern.
It won't impact.
Oh, it's commercial, you're
not
right.
residential
You're
at
right,
all.
you're right. I'm still trying to find some people on the council that have not done
And to
okay,
play-
you're right, it's commercial.
Sorry, to play up what the fire marshal has said, some of the cities, actually, we were talking about the companies that come in and do the testing. Like he says, they don't contact dispatch and let them know they're going into a
Right.
test, and the alarm goes up. They don't say anything. There's one of the cities fines them $250 right from the get-go for not contacting dispatch and having the fire department come out to their building.
And I would agree with that because I know we've struggled with that at the state of Kansas, and then I see the truck coming like, whoa, yeah. So, yeah, you are correct. Thank you.
And this does affect government buildings in the fact that if they call or overuse, that because of a faulty system, they can be.
Like the city manager's office. That popcorn at 3 o'clock.
Additional comments or questions from the body? Councilman Lesser.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just had one other question. I didn't see where are the funds are they going to go into, what budget are the funds going to go into it in regards to the fines and the?
Councilman Lesser, according to where most of these types of things go, it'll go into the general fund as a fee.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. I want to publicly acknowledge Councilman Cohen, who very diligently contacted me earlier today to let me know that he was going to be in a prior engagement. And with the mix-up that we had this evening with the proclamations and everything, I forgot before the roll call. So pardon me for not going ahead and publicly acknowledging the fact that you called early. At this point in time, we proceed with the announcements. If the clerk would read.
Looks like for next week, we have one proclamation. We will have 3 presentations. The consent agenda, we have an expenditure ordinance and a couple noise exceptions. On the action items, we will set public hearing dates for special assessments on 4 projects. We'll have a resolution for Heavenly Pet Memorials, a zoning request, resolution to consider the TIF policy, and then the ordinance on the false fire alarms we just discussed, and then a demolition request for the downtown Topeka Foundation at 618, 630, and 632 South Kansas Avenue.
City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. The one announcement that I have tonight is an announcement related to the Chiefs Advisory Board members. They've pulled together a survey that they would like individuals to answer relative to their thoughts regarding the community. So that survey, which I will forward to all council members so that you can then forward it on to others that may have an interest, and we'll have it available through the police department. But I'm going to read it real quick. It's surveymonkey.com/r/6 capital R, capital L, capital I, 9, capital C, capital Q. And so I'll forward that to you. But this survey, I took it the other day. It's a very good survey asking your opinion regarding relationships within the community to the police department. And I think, they're really working hard. It also is going to be available in Spanish so that those that can read it in that format will be better able to be served. And so that's going to be available, and the Chiefs Advisory Board will then utilize that information as they move forward with their work. So that's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you very much. First of all, I want to say thank you to my friends at North Topeka West NIA. I was there yesterday, give a presentation on Momentum 2022.
had some conversations with them. I was commenting to city manager this morning that I just really appreciate the passion of Teresa Miller. It's not every day that you see people just constantly come up and just advocate for their neighborhoods. And I love the fact that she always say, I'm concerned about people. I'm concerned about people walking. And it's just beautiful to see when people are very engaged in the community. So I would just like to encourage anybody that is watching, that if you're not engaged in a neighborhood improvement association, or if you're not involved with your watch, if you're not involved with your neighborhood association, I would encourage you to do that. Doesn't take a lot of time. Typically, it's 1 hour that you give of your time a month. There's people that are in your neighborhood that talk about issues that are important to them, and that really is what the fabric of our community is really made up of. Wanted to also congratulate the team at the Greater Topeka Partnership. We had our presentation today at Momentum 2022, and we had for the first time a glance of what our metrics will be. For the longest time, our community has said, what are you doing about economic development? And we've always talked about businesses that we're bringing to the community, and we talk about numbers of employment, but we really haven't been talking about the crucial issues of what the perception is in our community, how is the wealth distribution in our city, what are the things that we need to bring in order for us to make our community a thriving community. Well, we actually have a scorecard, and it's going to be publicized once we finish tweaking it, but it was an impressive document. A lot of credit to Freddie Mawin from the Greater Topeka Partnership and all the people that worked together with him to make that happen. Thank you also to my old alma mater, Wichita State University. I was able to be there last week, spoke with women from the region that are doing public service. Thank you for all the public servants in our community. Not only for all of you, because this is Public Servants Week, but for our firefighters, our police officers, every individual that gives up their time to serve their community. And finally, our BODs are graduating this weekend. So for those of you who have graduates at Washburn University, congratulations. I am looking forward to being all togaed up. I don't remember the last time that I wore a toga, helping in the commencement. So it'll be an interesting experience, me with the little hat and with the black gowns and everything. So that's all that I have right now. Councilmember Lesser. Councilwoman Clear. Councilwoman Ortiz.
Thank you. I am going to wait on a report for the smoke detectors until next week because Mr. Henderson has left. And Mike Martin told me they went to his house and they did a whole bunch of stuff there. So I want to say what they did. I want to be able to report what they did and how much they did. And I was glad to see that he took it serious and he got all that work done. I know I sit up here and say that time after time again, but you would be surprised, just like Deputy Mayor, that I hope he's getting his plan together because I haven't checked him all the way off the list. Oh. And so I hope he's doing what he needs to do to follow through. I wanted to read something. First, Mr. Woods, would you stand up in the audience for, this is our Amtrak guy right here, Mr. Woods. I fought for him to get his job. We didn't have an Amtrak carrier. No, that's not the word. That's not his title. What's your title, Jim?
Customer Service Representative.
Customer Service Representative. We didn't have anybody down there. But they told us we need to get our tickets up. Well, how can you get your tickets up if you didn't have anybody down there? So we fussed and we fussed and we fussed and we finally got this man hired. We have elderly. We have retired citizens. We have handicapped. We have people like me that need assistance. We got people with kids. We've got you. We cannot let this die. That's right. Get a picture of them. I ran a resolution that, and I don't know if we found it, City Manager, but I want to run it again to send it to Pat Roberts. We're asking everybody to call Pat Roberts. Mayor, I hope you will jump on this. We are the capital city, and we need to make sure that this man stays. His last day is the 20th. Is that correct? That's what.
Moved up to the 18th now.
They moved it up to the 18th. Let me share with you a story, and then I'll leave it alone. But I know I had one before. If we can't find one, I want to work on it to get it on the agenda next week, and I hope that you guys will be in support of that. that train is very valuable to us. We have people that put their kids on that go to Garden City and out south, you know, to school. There's a lot of kids down there. Go by there at 5 o'clock in the morning. I had my boss, and I'm going to ask her to write a letter of support. Her husband had cancer, and they wanted to just do one more trip, and it was a train trip. And she said, my husband was dying of cancer. I couldn't have done it without Mr. Woods. He helped me because it used to be, he didn't even put the packages on the train, and then they finally changed that. And so she said, I couldn't have done it without him because my husband, you know, I had to help him. This man helped so many people to get on that train that floats through there. And I mean, it's fast too. And for us to lose that is a big deal. It's a huge deal. You know, the retired Amtrak retirees, they're the ones that went down there, painted, did the windows, fixed all of the chairs and stuff down there. And we used to have National Train Day, and I helped with that. And we haven't done it in a while because people are like, is the train station still open? Let me tell you, it is open and it's ready for business. I tried to get on there to go to Chicago. We had death in our family, and I couldn't. It was packed. There was one seat left. But it's a hub to Chicago, and it's a hub to LA. But we need to get serious about it, and we need to make some phone calls, and we need to send this resolution and do whatever we can do to keep it open, because once it closes, it's going to be very, very sad. So the train comes at 5:18 in the morning. You know what? We're going to have people outside. It's not good. That won't be good for people that wait. He said there was somebody, I had a couple and a lady all night in the depot last night. I'm pretty sure that kind of thing will not be allowed with Amtrak's new arrangement. So where are they going to be? Outside at that area. Not good. Jim Parrish with Ramada Inn has helped to get people where they need to go when they get off the train at 5. And then to go to LA, it's 1:30 or 12:29. I just know that he just tells me what time to be down there. So 12:29. So you're there. You usually get down there about a half an hour, so that's midnight. Not a good area to be standing outside waiting on the train. Not a good area. Who's going to be? We're going to leave that station open? Really? We're going to have all kind of transits down there. We have all kind of transits. Well, I wish Mike Martin was here. The chief might not know this, but you know how many people go over to fire station number 3 that are transits down there and knock on the door in the middle of the night at the fire station? Yeah, right. We need this at our train station. We need to fight to keep this open, and I'm going to do that. If nobody else makes a call, if nobody else wants to support it, I'm going to support it. We are the capital, and we need to make sure that this stays open, and we can do that. I will find a card that an Amtrak person said, Sylvia, if you need anything, I'm looking for his card. I will send it to everybody. He's with Amtrak. But I would hope we would do that and keep this alive. We're one of the few, and keep Mr. Woods down there. I can't say how much he is supported. And then I'll say this, last but not least, he said, I did over 1,000 in ticket sales yesterday, and I'm over 500 so far this morning. And that was Tuesday, May the 8th. Our ticket sales are going to go down. And you can't get tickets on those machines with, you know, when they screw up or when your discounts and all that. It ain't happening. It ain't happening. So I would hope that you guys would join me in this fight, because that's what it is. That's basically what it is. And to keep it, they've got other people that they're keeping. We need to do our due diligence and keep Mr. Woods on. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Padilla. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. So a couple quick things. My wife and I have both ridden the train in and out of Topeka. In fact, we rode it back from LA on our honeymoon, and it was quite the adventure. So I will be glad to help you where I can with that. Last Friday, I went to the Young Professional Summit in Manhattan, and I was very pleasantly surprised at how most of the folks I had talked to from across Topeka across the state, their attitude toward our community is improving. People are starting to think better things about our community. So all of this work and all of this buzz that we're doing is starting to filter out into the young professionals across Kansas, and I think that is just amazing. This Saturday in downtown is the first of 3 big music, concert, and food truck festivals. I expect there to be no parking down there, and it should be a wonderful event, so please come and check it out. Last but not least, on the 10th, which is Thursday, is my lovely wife's 29th birthday again, and I just wanted to say happy birthday, sweetheart. I love you.
Councilman Mays?
I'm going to draw everybody's attention to the yellow postcards that were in your packets. French Middle School is doing a Save the City rally on May 15th. That's next Tuesday before our council meeting from 3:15 to 4, where the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders are going to share their ideas to try and improve the city of Topeka. I think this is a great thing they're doing. I would encourage everybody to stop by and check it out if you can.
Councilman Cohen?
Thank you, Mayor. Again, I apologize for being late. I was at a band concert at Whitson. And I want to say, shout out to ShareFest, because that Whitson grounds look great. All the sidewalks are painted and everything. It looks great over there. But I'd also like to say that I'm sorry that I missed Richard Round's Prayers of Poetry, almost. Anyway, thank you, Mayor.
There is no further public comment, announcements. We now proceed with the final public comment, and the individual signed up to speak is Mr. Joe Weir.
Well, thank you very much. Madam Mayor, governing body, thank you so much for this opportunity. First time I've ever really publicly spoke, so I'll get my heart calmed down a little. My name is Joe Weir, and it's a pleasure to address you. I want those in authority in the city to be aware of an outreach that we are doing to impoverished areas of our city and in your districts. Karen Hillard really helped us with an outreach March 17th to Central Park. Excuse me. But I worked with Victor Hercules, John Packard, and many volunteers, and we obtained a noise permit and park permit. Many businesses, grocery stores donated 700 hot dogs, buns, chips, water, and Vern White provided $80,000 of sound equipment free of charge. And with that equipment, we had 4 interdenominational worship teams come in. El Shaddai del Mundo, the United Methodist Church with Chuck Higgins, the Topeka House of Prayer, and Faith Family Life Center. And with Vern's equipment and those 4 worship bands, we provided a hot dog feed, water, and lifted up praise and worship in Central Park. And it set an example in my heart of saying, if we can do this in one park, why not others? So, now, unfortunately, it was a little chilly that day, so we had plenty of hot dogs left over. And it sounds simple, but it's still, the vision was to reach the real impoverished areas of Topeka. I have to send out kudos to the Director of Parks and Rec, Will Pope. He bent over backwards working with us and helping with us. I was having a hard time getting our church to underwrite the insurance to provide for the city park, so that it named the city, indemnified, I suppose, but we took the insurance risk of that, and he expedited the parks permit in 3 days. And for a governing body to do that, I thought that was exceptional, working with a typical bureaucracy. Because I think right now the typical, and Will emailed me and said, please give them 60 days notice of the outreaches in the future. Well, in trying to move something that quick has been a little difficult. But what I did was 3 weeks ago, can I pass these around? A picture says 1,000 words. 3 weeks ago, I ran into a gentleman, Bill Everting, that had set up this outfit strictly to go in and free of charge provide food. He has a bus with a trailer with a grill on it, and in the trailer are tables, and he goes in and he just sets up and grills food for free. And right now you're seeing what we did in the last 3 weeks. We've been in Timberlea Apartments right next to Ripley Park. And 3 weeks ago, I had been in touch with him versus on email, but he invited me there, and as I showed up, he was the only one to serve these people. And the 3 people he wanted didn't show up, but I was there. His grill wasn't working, so I ran home to get my grill. We served 80 hot dogs that day for just setting up and offering food. The next week, we doubled to, yes.
Your time has expired.
Oh,
Would
I'm
you
sorry.
like an extension?
Yes, please. I didn't know what time limit I was. Anyway,
How much time do you need, sir?
no. Oh, okay. 2 minutes.
2 minutes? We have a motion made by Councilwoman Ortiz, a second by Councilman Lesser.
Okay.
Could we please proceed with the voting for a 2-minute extension?
Thank you. I didn't know the proper protocol. Anyway, I wanted you as city council people to be aware. Pardon me? Oh.
7 yes.
7
Oh,
yes.
okay.
Motion passes. Now you have 2 more minutes.
Okay. So the bottom line here is we're setting up on my concern was we're setting this up on the city street. All the people are being served on the city easement. I wanted to make sure that you are aware we're in your districts, that there has some timelines of events we'd like to do. Part of the things is I would hope we could expedite the permit process with the city parks. Number one. Number two, if there's any way to waive any fees, everything we're doing is volunteer. We've had a benefactor donate 4,000 hamburgers. So we are going to go back to the grocery stores, and ask for donations for the buns. So all this is just gathering community volunteers and seeing what we can do to bring this into, where our plan is to take 3 weeks in a community, and on the 4th week, bring in the worship teams. So thank you for your time. That's all I wanted to do is make you aware of what's going on. And if there's any concerns, anything in wisdom we need to be applying, let us know.
Well, thank you for your service and for your heart to serving our constituents.
You're welcome.
Seeing no other items in the agenda, this meeting is adjourned.